Hello, my name's Claire Murray. I'm the managing partner of specialist partnership employment and regulatory firm CM Murray. And I'm delighted to be speaking today with our partner, Andrew Pavlovich. Andrew is a regulatory specialist with a huge amount of experience particularly in the SRA and in the legal sector. Andrew, we're going to talk briefly about Axiom Ince and the recent collapse. Can you just give us just a very quick summary of what's happened so far?
It started with Ince & Co, who were a firm in financial difficulties when they were acquired by Axiom around 6 weeks ago. And then three of the practices of individual managers of the newly formed firm were intervened into by the SRA. And the reason for the intervention into the managing partner's practice was a suspicion of dishonesty.
Mm.
Moving forward to last week, the SRA has now intervened into the firm itself.
Right.
I've read that was because their professional indemnity insurance had ceased, so they were no longer in a position to have insurance in place. Obviously, the SRA would be concerned about that in terms of potential outcomes for clients.
Mm.
So they obviously felt it was necessary to intervene into the firm itself rather than let it sort of orderly close down or wind down, which is probably what they were hoping to do.
And we know in the meantime that many of the partners, the former partners, have left and gone to other firms and taken clients, practices with them, etc. So to that extent, some clients are being looked after, but there's presumably a body of clients who still are potentially vulnerable.
Yeah, and I think probably that's what the SRA were hoping, that people would move, they would take their clients with them, and client interest would be protected in that way.
Mm.
But there's obviously a body of clients that are still left. The indemnity insurance ceased, and then therefore they were left with clients that needed protection.
Mm-hmm.
So now that they've intervened, all of those clients' papers has been taken away. Intervening agents will have those, and they'll be able to contact clients with urgent matters. Redistribute, clients will find new solicitors, and the process will hopefully be managed in a way which won't cause clients too much inconvenience.
And to the extent that there are sort of ongoing negative impacts and damage to clients, what's their recourse?
If the clients have suffered any loss as a result of sort of dishonesty on the part of the solicitor, and this is obviously bearing in mind that there's apparently a £64 million deficit in the client account, they can apply to the SRA's compensation fund.
Right.
And so that's a discretionary fund of last resort where the SRA can step in to compensate people. You have to be able to demonstrate hardship. So it's not clear whether it's sort of available for more commercial profit-making entities, but for sort of individuals, it should be there, providing that they can't claim the money back for another route, such as the firm's insurer or something like that.
And presumably that compensation fund is funded by the profession.
That's right, yeah. So, I mean, there's the potential, given the size of the deficit that's been reported, for enormous claims on the fund, and therefore increase in practicing certificate fees down the line. We'll have to see what happens, but it's clearly quite worrying.
Okay.
There is a cap of 2 million on any one claim.
Oh.
So we don't know how that 64 million deficit is broken down in terms of the sums. So we'll just have to wait and see, I guess, as to how it plays out.
Obviously, we're not involved in this situation, and so we don't have any first-hand knowledge. And so these are just allegations. There are no findings at this stage about any of the allegations that have been made. But where do you think this is likely to go next? And what confirms other firms learn about this? Because Ince was a fantastic, mid-sized firm, very well regarded, and it seems it's sort of just really sad that it's at this stage. What do you think other firms might be able to learn from the whole thing?
Well, I think there's a general issue around the acquisition of firms and the oversight of that, and the regulatory oversight. The SRA have said, and it's true, that they're not required to approve acquisitions, and that raises questions here, because Paul Phillip has actually come out and said the circumstances of this were unusual because it was a smaller firm acquiring a larger firm. It's balancing the need to act quickly because obviously Ince was in a bit of financial distress at the time, and adding a layer of SRA approval could have improved, lengthened the time of the process. But I think there is potentially questions to be asked there about whether the SRA should be having a more active oversight in these sorts of things.
And given those sort of powers, because I mean, we ended up with a situation where basically Ince pretty much went out of the frying pan into the fire. They sort of went into Axiom, and then they went from Axiom into intervention and sort of full meltdown. So yeah, I mean, I think if the SRA had those powers to assess Axiom more in more detail, that might have produced a better outcome.
So I think they'll be looking at that. And in terms of the wider issues, obviously we still don't know, as you say, as to how this deficit on client account emerged. One of the things that has been raised is the fact that the managing partner held all of the key roles in the firm, such as Colp, Coffer, etc., and whether centralising roles in that way is a good idea, or whether it should be diversified to make sure that everyone's doing individual things and power can't be centralised in that way. I don't think that's necessarily something that has to happen. Obviously, if it's a smaller firm, it might be sensible for one person to have all the roles, or you might have an allocated partner who does all of the firm's compliance and has all of those roles. But it's something to think about. So I think there are issues there.
Of a bigger firm, those sort of just corporate governance type checks and sort of checks and balances on power would be, I think, very sensible.
So I think there will definitely be lessons to come out of it. As you say, the scale of the damage to the profession isn't known yet in terms of the compensation fund claims, and we don't have all of the facts. Presumably there will be disciplinary proceedings against at least one of the three individuals whose practice has been intervened into, which will tell us more as well. So it's still early days, but I think it's clearly going to send shockwaves through the profession, and it will sort of raise questions that the SRA will have to answer and look at, and the profession as a whole as well.
Thank you. Thanks so much. I hope you've found this an interesting discussion. If you have any questions or concerns, please do get in touch. Andrew will be very pleased to speak with you. Thanks for watching, and hope to see you again soon. Thanks a lot. Bye-bye.